Treasury of American Folklore, Part 2, Boosters and Knockers. Everything is upon the great scale upon this continent. The rivers are immense, the climate violent in heat and cold, the prospects magnificent, the thunder and lightning tremendous. The disorders incident to the country make every constitution tremble. Our own blunders here, our misconduct, our losses, our disgraces, our ruin, are on a great scale. Lord Carlo to George Selwyn, 1778. Section 1. Tall Talk. I can outspeak any man, Davy Crockett. We pride ourselves in the backwoods upon being original and perpendicular, like the bow of a hammer. Timothy Flint. 1. Making a noise and language. The language of the ring-tailed boar, and without his language he was like Samson without his hair, was tall talk. Tall talk may be defined as an art of making a noise and language. As such, it is characterized by grandiloquence, boasting, and exaggeration. At its best, it is a kind of poetry. At its worst, it is bombast and buncombe. For the most part, however, it is comic in effect or intention, insofar as exaggeration is a source of humor, or as tall talk has been associated with the local color sketches, yarns, and tall tales of the Old Southwest. Froth and specks of the fermentation processes of language, as that tall-talking poet Whitman described slang. Tall talk is a slang of the frontier movement, when windy bragging and laughing at bragging were at their height. Tall talk is not only frontier in spirit, it is also national and regional. Since broad exaggeration has been identified with American humor, and through it is the character of the people and the physical features of the country, tall talk has come to be considered part of our national heritage, along with tall tales and tall heroes. During the growth of nationalism and the new nation after the War of 1812, rankless and Protestantism in speech accompanied the release of political and industrial energies of the country. Robert Kept, the British compiler of the American Joe Miller, wrote in 1865 of his American cousins, "Their ordinary speech is hyperbole, or tall talk. They never go out shooting unless with a longbow." Regional characteristics are clearly stamped upon tall talk. In the United States, what has been called the dividing line of loquacy runs east and west as well as north and south. It corresponds roughly to the Mason and Dixon line and the Mississippi or Missouri River. The tradition of good talk and talkativeness has been home south by west. Here, country folks frolic in public gatherings, parties, picnics, barbecues, camp and political meetings, and muster and court days, have invited talk, folk talk, man talk, back talk, and encouraged yarn cerning and stump speech eloquence. Such backwoods eloquence is expansive eloquence, in contrast to the reluctant Yankee crackerbox philosopher brand. It must not be thought, however, that tall talk was illiterate. In its bundle of crooked and stupendous words and phrases, it possessed many of the features of a literary dialect. Gentle reader admonishes the anonymous author of Sketches of Eccentricities of Colonel David Crockett of West Tennessee, and a prefatory statement followed by a vote for Crockett. I can promise you in no part of this volume the wild Romanites of Bushfield, nor can I regale you with a still more delicate repast of constant repetition of the terms bodaciously, tetulaciously, and offensively. And though I have much intercourse in the West, I have never met with a man who used such terms unless they were alluded to, as merely occupying a space in some printed work. They have, however, thus been made to enter, as a component part, into the character of every backwoodsman. Like most literary dialects, tall talk was spread on thick by its practitioners. The picturesque, grotesque tropes and expletives attributed to backwoodsmen and boatmen in fiction, for all their allusions to everyday objects and activities of the time and place, constitute a species of literary folklore. Basic to this strong language is, of course, what John Russell Bartlett, and his Dictionary of Americanisms, 1848, refers to as the fondness of Americans, especially in the South and West, for intensive and extravagant epithets. Awful, powerful, monstrous, dreadful, mighty, all-fired. Tall talk was strong language, constantly striving to outdo itself. Thus, Bartlett defines teetotosity as a strange Western term meaning a little more than teetotal, if such a thing be possible. By means of strange blends and coinages, coupled with far-fetched comparisons and extravagant conceits, as shaggy and rambunctious as the backwoodsmen who were supposed to utter them, tall talk went the whole hog. 2. An entire zoological institute. Tall talk also had its mythology, in which animal illusions figured prominently. These point to a hunting and trapping existence and love of sports as turf and field, such as produced the hunting and sporting yarns that filled William T. Porter's viral journal of oral and anecdotal humor, The Spirit of the Times, 1831 through 1861. Like the woods, the Crockett almanacs were full of bear, catamount, beaver, panther, moose, wolf, raccoon, possum, turkey, etc. Of the word screamer, a bouncing fellow or girl, Bartlett notes, this, like the word roar, is one of many terms transferred from animals to men by the hunters of the West. It is not too fantastic to see this transfer of names as in nicknames, totemic transfer of traits, reflected in the application to humans of such terms as hoss, old hoss, colt, a pretty severe colt, coon, a right smart coon, and a gone coon, varmint, a critter.